tous, bienvenue à cette 53e séance du comité permanent.
Welcome to the 53rd meeting of the Standing Committee on Official Languages.
108-3F 2009-2010 Annual Report of the Commissioner of Official Languages referred to the committee on Tuesday, November 2010. Nous avons le plaisir de recevoir les...
This morning we have the pleasure of hearing from the representatives from the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. Welcome, Mr. Rosenberg, Deputy Minister. Welcome to the committee. He's accompanied by the Director General and Champion of Official Languages, who we've already met with at this committee, Roxane Dubé, as well as the Director, Corporate Resourcing Division, Monica Janicek. Now, without any further ado, I'd like to ask you to begin your opening remarks. Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, honourable members of Parliament. It's my pleasure to be here today to answer your questions regarding the Commissioner of Official Languages report card, on the application of the Official Languages Act at the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. I understand you've already heard from Susan Gregson, the Assistant Deputy Minister of Human Resources, as well as Christine Desloges, the Chief Executive Officer of Passport Canada. I also believe you've received a series of documents on the work being carried out within our department.
In 2010, the department was the subject of a report card for the first time. We recognize that the overall rating of E is very poor and that we're one of 3 institutions to have received this rating. We're concerned and are already taking concrete steps to improve those areas requiring attention, and you have my commitment that we are taking this seriously. Our first step was to invite Graham Fraser, the Commissioner, to present to our Executive Committee to discuss the report card results, and that meeting took place on December 20th, 2010. I'd like to now address each of the 5 measures that made up the overall report card result and explain what corrective action we're taking. Tout d'abord, nous avons reçu la...
First, we received an A for Part 6 of the Official Languages Act, participation of English-speaking and French-speaking Canadians. We presently have a Francophone workforce that exceeds the rate of the Canadian population. 36% of our workforce is Francophone, and the Canadian Francophone population is at 24%. I believe this feature, combined with the importance DFATE personnel accord to actively representing our linguistic duality abroad, is a strong foundation on which to build our corrective action on official languages.
Management of the Official Languages Program, we received a D. Although we were recognized for our good overall management of the Official Languages Program in areas such as policy development, employee awareness, and complaint resolution, we lacked mechanisms to promote understanding of Part 4, communication with and services to the public, and Part 7, minority language communities. And our action plan was considered to have ill-defined objectives and unclear monitoring mechanisms. To rectify this, we're finalizing the development of a new comprehensive Official Languages Action Plan for 2011 and onwards. The plan is an important part of our corporate planning and is in keeping with our report on plans and priorities for 2011-12, which commits to an active promotion of the use of official languages in the workplace. The plan includes the implementation of strategies and monitoring mechanisms to improve the management of the Official Languages Program and to increase the visibility of official languages in the department. It will be brought for review and approval at the Executive Council in May, following ongoing consultations within our headquarters, our regional offices, our missions abroad, and our key partners with respect to Part 7 of the Act, the official language minority communities. I'd be pleased to forward a copy to the committee once it's completed. Pour assurer une planification et une mise en œuvre plus générale et plus...
To ensure a broad and coherent planning and implementation, we have accelerated the work of our network of official languages coordinators, which represents headquarters, regions, and all our missions abroad, over 150 offices. The network holds quarterly meetings, chaired by our official languages champion. Amongst other measures, the action plan will take further steps in response to the concerns voiced by some members of this committee with respect to the active offer of service in both official languages by our missions abroad. This relates to the 3rd measure evaluated by the Commissioner, Service to the Public, Part 4, for which we received a C. We are pleased that the Commissioner acknowledged that the service we provide by email was available 100% of the time in the official language of choice, and that the visual active offer was present 97% of the time. However, in fact,
active offer of service in person and by phone, this was only done 56% of the time and 69% of the time, respectively. To address this, and with regard to the specific cases raised by members of this committee, we wrote to all of our heads of mission and asked them to provide us with measures that they have implemented to ensure bilingual service to the public. Missions responded with several positive, proactive measures to ensure linguistic duality, including for services offered by all relevant sections of our mission, for example, the immigration section, which I take it was the subject of some discussion here. Allow me to reference a few of the good practices they noted, such as maintaining a roster of bilingual staff available to provide services in both languages, conducting surveys on the quality of consular services offered to the public, reminding employees of the importance of offering an active offer of service in both languages, and ensuring that locally engaged employees receive training to maintain a level of bilingualism. I'd like to note that with more than 5,000 locally engaged staff as part of our workforce, it requires some considerable effort to ensure an active offer of bilingual service is systematically given in certain locations. J'ai également demandé à ce que les...
I have also asked that the assessment of official languages, which is part of every mission inspection, be the subject of a distinct section of the report, which, as you know, is made public. From now on, the inspection on official languages will be more detailed and will cover services offered by our partner departments, such as Immigration Canada. We will also intensify periodic, unannounced, independent verification, particularly in the wake of complaints, to ensure that remedial action is sustained. I have also put this issue on the agenda of the next meeting of the Deputy Ministers Committee on Representation Abroad to ensure a solid interdepartmental partnership in the delivery of bilingual services abroad. Finally, we have reviewed our approach to the training of heads of mission to ensure additional time and material is made available to them to review our obligations with respect to official languages. I will underline the leadership role of our heads of mission are called upon to play in this area when I address them this spring. A session was also held on March 8th with the managers of our regional offices across Canada on this issue.
Canadians should be able to be served in their first language in our offices, abroad, and at home. We'll continue to provide awareness sessions on service to the public to all our staff, to provide missions with a glossary of basic bilingual terms and phrases, to regularly remind all employees, especially replacements for receptionists, about the tools at their disposal and the importance of locating a French-speaking employee should a visitor require service in French, to increase the signage that indicates that we offer bilingual services, to conduct regular verification of active offer of service, and to meet with all staff to discuss the importance of providing an active offer of bilingual services at all times. Pour la partie 5 de la loi, intitulée Langue de travail, nous
We received an E for Language of Work, Part 5 of the Official Languages Act. This is due to the fact that according to the 2008 Public Service Employees Survey, only 57% of our Francophone employees felt free to write in the language of their choice, and only 67% felt free to interact with their supervisors in their language of choice. We have just received fresh recommendations from a senior-level committee which was struck to look at the language of work issues.
They deal with issues of leadership, performance management, awareness, support, and tools for employees. As a result, we're providing more awareness sessions on language of work. We just gave one on February 22nd, and it was well attended. Senior management committees are, of course, routinely conducted in a bilingual format, and senior management has proactively encouraged all employees to write their briefing notes and other documents in the language of their choice. We have invited Monique Collette, who has led a comprehensive study on how to create and promote a truly bilingual workforce, to address our departmental employees next Monday. She follows Graham Fraser, who addressed all DFATE managers in late 2009. Notre champion des langues officielles a créé une page.
Our official language champion has created a web page to provide a one-stop point of service for a range of tools and practices on official languages.
Minority communities and promotion of linguistic duality. Having read the Commissioner's report card on Part 7, I have given thought to DFATE's approach to supporting official language minority communities. And it seems to me that our actions are concentrated in three main areas. Firstly, in projecting Canada's values abroad, we play a critical role in ensuring that our country's linguistic duality acknowledges the presence and importance of official language minority communities as an essential component of the Canadian fabric. Secondly, in attracting students to Canada, we take into consideration the needs and interests of official language minority communities. And thirdly, we recognize official language minority communities as important interlocutors and partners in advancing Canadian interests and values abroad, both with respect to key programs such as La Francophonie, but also in shaping Canada's foreign and trade policy and programs as a whole. To further this effort, I will be inviting representatives of the official languages minority communities to an annual dialogue to provide them with a more formal and holistic opportunity to review and comment on all of our programs and policies, as well as to provide the Department, including myself, an opportunity to listen to the needs and challenges of these communities. Nous continuerons par ailleurs à offrir des séances de formation.
We will also continue to educate and increase the awareness of managers and employees on Part 7 of the Official Languages Act by continuing to provide awareness sessions. We are reviewing our tools and procedures to better assess the impact of programming decisions on official language minority communities. This will take some time and effort. In closing, I would like to say that we are well aware that there is still work to be done, and we would like to assure the committee that we will pursue initiatives already underway and will continue to evaluate how we can improve all aspects of the Official Languages Act at our department. And now I'll be more than pleased to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much, Mr. Rosenberg. We'll start our first round of questioning with Ms. Zahac. Good morning and welcome to the committee. Thank you for coming this morning. Now, you said that you were in the process of preparing an Official Languages Action Plan. Did you have a plan in the past? Yes, we did. And it dated, what years did it cover? If I'm not mistaken, it went up to 2010. It was 2008 to 2010. I became a deputy minister last June, June 2010, so I wasn't here when the last plan was developed initially. Based on a study conducted by the Commissioner, if you look at your action plan, because you didn't really get very good ratings, did that plan correspond to what the department had put in place? The plan that we're working on now? No, the previous plan. The previous plan. Well, there were some shortcomings, quite frankly, in the plan with respect to performance measures. And we will be trying to improve those in the next plan. Now, this is also the first time that the Commissioner's Office has given us a rating. We're taking this very seriously, and we're taking a very close look at the comments made by the Commissioner. Of course, the action plan must meet the concerns that are expressed in the report. A more specific question. Now, I congratulate you on meeting with the Commissioner. I think that that's an important step in the right direction, but did you take a step back and examine what didn't work in the old plan to see what you could improve in the new one? I'll ask Ms. Dubé to answer that question more specifically. Well, thank you for your question, Ms. Zahac. In light of the comments from the Commissioner's Office, so we met with employees of his staff, to understand precisely what our weaknesses were in each sector. We identified our strengths and our weaknesses, and based on that, we established a new plan. And many of the initiatives have already been alluded to by Mr. Rosenberg in his opening remarks. Now we're holding consultations internally, and once the final draft has been prepared, we'll be happy to share it with you. When do you expect the plan to be prepared? Well, Mr. Rosenberg said that he would be presenting it to the Executive Council, the highest management committee, in May, and following that, we'll be able to release a copy to you. Now, there's something that I'm a bit concerned with, because you said that you met with senior management. You say that these meetings are bilingual. However, 57% of your employees say that they don't feel free to communicate in their language of choice. How can you explain that? Well, I'll try and explain that, in fact. Official languages is a question of leadership, in my view. And it's a matter of using all of the instruments and tools that are available. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Mr. Rosenberg, but now, you said that you encourage employees to write in the language of their choice. If an employee were to draft a document in French and to submit it to the supervisor, is a supervisor in a position to read it, or does it have to be sent for translation first? In theory, the supervisor must be in a position to take note of it, and the employee is entitled to write in his or her language of choice. But it's a question of culture. Now, how do we change the culture? We change the culture first and foremost by setting an example, and by that I mean people who are leading the institution.
So what we try to do is that at the executive level and in committees where there are deputy ministers or myself, that we ensure that our meetings are bilingual. So at the Executive Council or at the policy committee that I chair, I can assure you that the meetings take place in both languages. There are Francophones who speak French or English, Anglophones who decide to speak French or English. They feel comfortable. They speak in the language of their choice. Both languages are used. Moreover, we have DEX. I think you might know about DEX. You're probably familiar with this concept. It's a set of documents. You can have French documents with English translation or the opposite. What we try to do in our department is to have half-half, one page in English, one page in French. That is how we try to encourage the use of both languages. But we do recognize that it should not only happen at the senior level, even though it is a good sign and it's a good example to set, we have to actively encourage the use of the language of choice of employees throughout the organization. So how did we do this? A few weeks ago, we sent out the message through the deputy minister that we want employees and staff to write to us and speak to us in the language of their choice. Then we will ask our assistant deputy ministers to also convey the same message to staff in their offices and ask the directors and directors general to also convey this same message on an ongoing basis. Further, we want to find ways to measure this. So what would these measures be? Polls, for one. We recognize there was no public service poll last year, but I believe there should be one this year. There are questions in the poll that deal with official languages. That's one option. And another option that we are considering is the use of an assessment tool that is called the 360 degrees. In other words, we ask managers that they be assessed not only by their supervisors, but that also staff have an opportunity to speak their mind about this management style. Of course, in the context of this 360 evaluation, we want to ensure that there are questions posed on the issue of official languages. Mr. Nadeau, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to our witnesses. From my understanding of this matter, in 1931, the Foreign Office was no longer responsible for foreign affairs. Canada became a sovereign state, and that is when the Department of Foreign Affairs was created in 1931. Before then, it was a colony, a dominion, and it becomes a sovereign state. Canada becomes a sovereign state as of 1931, so that's my understanding. And as of 1931, there is a culture, a very English-speaking culture, or very English culture at a foreign affairs. And Mr. Rosenberg, you're saying recently we did this, we did that, we tried to change the culture within the organization, and we tried to make sure we respect French and English, and all of this recently. Yes, you've been holding this position since June. Is it just a recent thing at Foreign Affairs that people are realizing that this is we're no longer a colony or a dominion, and that this is a sovereign state we're living in? And you have to respect and uphold official languages. With all due respect, Mr. Chairman, even with the quota, there are weaknesses, and we take this very seriously. But there are things that have been recognized in this report to point to the fact that we're doing certain things very well. Well, Mr. Rosenberg, it's like everything else. We don't really chastise our kids for the things they do well. What we're looking at here is that you have an E on language of work. 57% of your staff in designated bilingual areas do not feel comfortable drafting documents in French. 67% of staff in bilingually designated areas do not feel comfortable speaking to their supervisors in French. What are you going to say about that? What will you do about this? Are your senior officers looking, how do they perceive French documents written in French by their staff? Do they dislike that? Is it a problem because the translation takes a long time and therefore it's a hindrance? Listen, this is what I hear. I am in the federal riding out of the 308 ridings where there are the most public servants. And I can tell you it's a real factory. 6,000 people are full-time employees of the federal government, and many of these people are francophones. It's Gatineau. 92% of people are francophone, and there are people who think that as soon as they cross over to go and work in Ottawa, or when they get back to Gatineau and work in Hull at Chaudière, they switch to English because they just don't feel at home. What are you going to do about this? What can you do to prove to me that you are on the right track, and in 1 year's time, when we see you again, you will have gone from an E grade to much better? I can do no better than to repeat what I've already said. First, we will see within a year. Of course, one of the important instruments is government's accountability to Parliament, and this is the very purpose of your committee. We will appear before your committee again next year to give you a status report and see if there's been an actual improvement. I can do no better, really, than to reiterate what I've already said in response to your colleague's question. There are solutions we are looking at and implementing, like consistent leadership at the senior levels in the department, and also monitoring mechanisms to ensure or to verify whether things are changing or not, and so as to take action if there is action needed. We also want people to understand their obligations under the Official Languages Act. Is it the first time in the history of your department, this is the first study or assessment of your department that's been done, is it the first time you've actually become conscious of the importance or the significance of this, the fact that your Francophone staff are not happy, that they don't feel comfortable working in French in your department? It'd be difficult for me personally to respond to that question because, as I say, I just recently joined the department this very year. So I'm very much concerned about this report. I speak to staff. I am open to suggestions as to how to improve the situation, and I seek them out. So you're saying it's thanks to Mr. Morris Rosenberg that we are starting, that the Department of Foreign Affairs is starting to realize the significance of French? Because before your arrival, we don't even know what the corporate memory is within this department. We don't know what was implemented before to make sure that Francophones would feel comfortable in your department. Is that what you're saying? No, with all due respect, that's not exactly what I said. As I noted in the Commissioner's report, there are positive aspects to our performance. But it is the first time that the Official Languages Commissioner has carried out this type of an assessment of departments, of our department. Given that it's the first time, it can be said that we are acting in good faith and looking at what the Commissioner has pointed out. And we will be acting in good faith to improve our weaknesses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gaudin, you now have the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And welcome. Mr. Dubé, how many years have you been working for Foreign Affairs? You are the Official Languages Champion since 1998. As a champion since September 2008. September 2008. Since September 2008, you've been the Official Languages Champion. Did you see this coming? I mean, it's not really all that positive. You've got a lot of D's and C's as graded. You have Mr. Guan Hu from in the month of March saying that standards are offered that in terms of the standards of work and official language use, it's not adhered to. What's happening in your department? You're asking me the question, says Mr. Dubé? Yes, you as a champion, says Mr. Gaudin. Well, look, frankly, we were not expecting that grade from the Official Languages Commissioner. You thought everything was going well? No, I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but we have and we continue to have great cooperation with, to cooperate with the department, with the Official Languages Commissioner. And the main issue in the Commissioner's report was management of the program. They noted a number of positive things and strengths. The existence of an action plan that was noted a while earlier. It had been in place for 2 years at the time when the Official Languages Commissioner did his investigation, that there was also some awareness raising in the department, that there were other control measures to ensure bilingual staffing in terms of management of complaints, that there was something in place in terms of managing Part 7 of the Official Languages Act, that there were also meetings with community leaders, official language community, minority communities, and so they did note a number of positive practices. It should be pointed that 98% of positions in our department are bilingual. That is quite a high number of positions to manage abroad and here. So there is a culture within the department. We favor bilingual services in all of our missions. And if you found that there was some deficiency in a given embassy, we can assure you that we have a performance measure now in place. And so that is how we know that there are problems, and we act to respond to that. So what you just said, Ms. Dubé, is that 90% of staff is bilingual? Is that what you're saying? 98% of positions are bilingual. Oh, the positions. So behind a position, there is a person, isn't there? Are those people bilingual? A position might just be a desk, really. I'd like an answer to my question. It seems pretty simple. If you create a bilingual position, then you put a bilingual person in that position. Is the answer 98% bilingual? I'll give you some figures. They date back to September 30th, 2010. All right, September 2010. 1,177 staff working abroad. 85% of these staff meet the linguistic requirement of their position, and 14.9% do not meet the requirements. Those who do not had to do with non-imperative staffing. Other positions are department transfers. Okay, let's start with that. You give me some figures. So 98% of these positions are bilingual. What is it? 98%. 98% of the positions are bilingual. Yes. What about the issue of whether people are bilingual? Now you're providing me with some figures. So we have bilingual positions. Listen, when I get on Air Canada, they tell me that the position is bilingual at Air Canada, and I mean, I'm on the plane and I order an orange juice and I get a glass of water because the people sit an exam, but they can't actually speak. No. When we say that they pass an exam, they have to be able to provide services in French or English. They're supposed to be able to provide services in both official languages. Is that been checked? Do you have complaints about that? Yes, we do get complaints. Last time the representatives from our department appeared before your committee, there were complaints that were raised by our colleagues. 5 of our missions abroad were mentioned, and the fact specifically that there was a lack of French language services, and we took these complaints very seriously. We spoke to the heads of missions in each and every case, and in each case, corrective action was taken to improve the situation. We also made sure that our heads of mission were made aware of their obligation. It's essential that they ensure that services are offered to the public in both official languages. All right, on page 4 of your presentation, you said 36% of our staff is Francophone, whereas 24% of the Canadian public is Francophone. So that's 12% more than Francophone numbers in the general population. Well, what about the 24% that is Francophone? How many of these people are bilingual? Why did you refer to 36% of Francophones? I didn't understand. I think in this case, we're talking about the Commissioner's report dealing with
Peut-être on va passer à l'autre témoin. Peut-être vous avez...
Perhaps we'll move to the next witness because your time is up. Ms. Boucher, we'll finish the first round with Ms. Boucher. If you don't mind, I will take the floor. Mr. Godin's comment was inaudible to the interpreter. So I have some questions for you. Obviously, you've had some successes, but those are never really the points we choose to focus on. I see that you've gotten an E grade for promotion of linguistic duality and the rest. This is the year 2011. You were also saying that you were only now starting to look into certain issues in order to improve that letter grade. Well, this is a bilingual country. We have 2 official languages in Canada. You're telling me that that is where things stand today. But what were you doing in the past? Did you have to report to the Official Languages Commissioner? Is this the first time the Official Languages Commissioner has ever studied your case and given you these grades? Ms. Dubé, you've been in this position since '98. What was being done in the past, and why is it that in 2011 we are still dealing with this problem where we see that 57% of Francophones feel uncomfortable, 67% of Anglophones don't feel comfortable either? There's a problem here. So what's been done since then to rectify the situation so as to not have this situation recur? If I may, as noted in the Commissioner's report, it's not the first time that we've realized that there is work to be done with official language minority communities. The department has done a great deal of work in promoting the francophonie. It has interacted with the Fédération des communautés francophones acadiennes, other Quebec Community Groups Network, and other agencies, the English Language Arts Network, and there have also been meetings and consultations with these communities. We worked with them and plan, for instance, try to find actually ways to attract French-speaking students to come and study in Francophone institutions outside of Quebec. We were doing all of that, but there are still some shortcomings that are addressed in the Official Languages Commissioner, and I have it in English here. I'll read it to you.
DFATE did not seize the occasion to identify official languages communities and or identify the needs of official language communities. This necessary step should be undertaken so the needs of these communities can be included in the management of the Department's Official Languages Program. Il y a aussi une critique quant au fait que le...
Now, there's also been some criticism. It's been said that the department doesn't take into account the needs of linguistic minority communities in decisions designed to change programs or to develop programming. So now we intend to improve in that area as well. So you're aware now of the need for these kinds of programs. Now, you talked about having discussions and meetings with the official language minority communities. Have they given you any ideas, any ways of enabling them to feel more part of the decisions that you make? Well, I will ask Madame Dubé to respond to your question shortly with respect to current practices or practices that existed, in fact, in the past. With respect to those consultations, as I said in my opening remarks, I intend to hold a consultation on an annual basis with those communities, as we have with other departments, to achieve two things. First of all, to ensure that they understand our full range of programming that currently exists at the department, to be in a position to understand how those programs or policies may affect official language minority communities. And at the same time, we'll give our employees an opportunity to listen to the needs of those communities so that they can take those needs into account when developing policies and programs at the departmental level. That's what I intend to do this year. And I'll ask Ms. Dubé to say a few words about what was done in the past. In his opening remarks, Mr. Rosenberg referred to a network of champions of official languages. And what that is a quarterly meeting of representatives from our missions, from our regional offices, and all headquarters sections with respect to progress on official languages. Now, one of those meetings per year is systematically dedicated to holding a dialogue with representatives from the various communities. In October 2010, we invited Ms. Bossé, who's the Director General of the Fédération des Communautés Acadiennes et Francophones, and at that time, their concerns were domestic, dealing with the roadmap, Canadian heritage, but at the same time, we focused on 3 different areas. Education, because our minority communities need support. We have a program for the promotion of education abroad, for the recruitment of Francophones and Anglophones to bring them into minority communities. So that their participation and the participation of Francophone universities in Canada is important, as is the Association of Colleges and Universities of Canada, and we had a very good discussion with Ms. Bossé on that issue. Ms. Dubé, I know that you've got 2 additional points, but I do have to respect all of our witnesses, all of our questioners here. We'll come back to you in the second round. So thank you, Ms. Boucher. We'll now move on to the second round, second and final round with Mr. Bélanger. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll give you 15 seconds of my 5 minutes to conclude. The second sector is the francophonie, following the Montreux situation. We're supporting the Quebec government on French language. And the third area of cooperation is with respect to exports. So we're cooperating with Prince Edward Island, Winnipeg, Moncton. So there's already a lot of work that's underway. Thank you. Now, welcome to the committee, everyone. Mr. Rosenberg, you're not very lucky because you have inherited several years of negligence on the part of your predecessors. So I'd encourage you to continue working along the lines as you have been. And if I may, I'd like to suggest that you consult Mr. Dupont, who's a Deputy Minister at Natural Resources. He appeared before the committee, and they, too, received a poor rating. He came forth with a very convincing, very well-prepared action plan. It was nice to look at. It was very comprehensive, and perhaps your department could take a look at what's being done at Natural Resources. Secondly, I'd also like to encourage you, well, in fact, I congratulate you and encourage you to maintain the dialogue that you intend to hold on an annual basis with official language minority communities. That existed in the past. When you were at Justice, you participated in that, so you'll recall the situation. So I'd encourage you to maintain that, and if possible, of course, if it were to be accepted, it would be good for us to receive an overview or of all of that. Now, thirdly, your department is the face of Canada abroad. There are some 50 missions, and in your opening statement, you emphasized that you contacted all of them. Did all of them respond? No. Could you tell us which ones haven't yet responded? Yes. I'm not sure exactly what deadline we gave them, if there was a deadline. Before answering, I would like to give them one final opportunity to respond. So if some of them aren't respecting or complying with the requests of the Deputy Minister, it would be our pleasure to contact them. Now, I've had an opportunity to visit some of the missions, and I didn't feel at home. I didn't feel represented as a Canadian there, as a French-speaking Canadian in some of those missions. And one where I didn't feel, there was one where I wouldn't have felt represented as an Anglophone. I won't tell you which one, but I'll wait for your answers. Fourth point, a minor concern on your second focus on Part 7, where you talk about encouraging immigrants to come to Canada, especially students. Now, I wouldn't want that to be only students, because they tend to leave after they've completed their studies. And a committee has done an in-depth study on that, and I would encourage you, Ms. Dubé, to take a look at it. It was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, our first meeting of this committee, report, rather. So I'd encourage you to take a look at it. Well, if I may, I'd like to say that I agree with you. I made a distinction between what our department is mandated to do and areas under the responsibility of other departments. Immigration is the responsibility of Citizenship and Immigration, even if we do sit on a committee with them, to focus on planning and drawing immigrants to Canada from official language minority communities. I agree with you. It's simply a question. I've got perhaps a minute left here, Mr. Rosenberg, so I'd like to explore something else with you. I'd like to talk about the relationship between deputy ministers and the clerk. In your mandate letter, I'm not sure exactly what you call it, but was there a reference to official languages? Not in the mandate letter, no. But that doesn't mean we don't discuss official languages. There are a number of ways that that is done by deputy ministers. First of all, there's a committee of deputy ministers. Many deputy ministers are members of that committee, and it's chaired by the Treasury Board Secretariat, which deals with the broad management issues within the federal government. And at that committee, official language issues are discussed. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Fraser was invited to address that committee, to meet with the members of it. Unfortunately, I have to interrupt you here again, but we'll now move on to Ms. Nadeau. Ms. Nadeau, excuse me, I apologize for that. Ms. Gay. Please don't make that mistake too often. I really adore my colleague, but at any rate, we won't get any rumors going here this morning. His wife wouldn't be happy with that. Now, let's get back to the task at hand here. Inaudible for the interpreter. Now, you talked about the overall management of official languages program. You received a D. And what struck me in your remarks, Mr. Rosenberg, was what you said on page 4. You said that we don't have a mechanism that enables us to promote understanding of Part 4, which deals with communications and services to the public. And Part 7, minority language communities. And our action plan was considered to have ill-defined objectives and unclear monitoring mechanisms. I'd like you to elaborate on that. It's on page 4 of your opening remarks.
Okay.
Le dernier paragraphe.
It's the last few lines of the first paragraph in the English version. Well, we did have tools, but there were shortcomings. The objectives weren't clearly defined. Now, what we want are performance measures, which didn't exist in the past, so that we're in a better position to actually measure how we can improve our performance. We want to reduce the number of cases where people don't receive services in French, or situations where French-speaking employees don't feel comfortable using their first language on a daily basis in the workplace, or when drafting memos. So in the most recent plan, that wasn't clearly defined enough. That's what we're focusing on this new plan. So how much time do you think that's going to take? Well, as I said in my opening statement, the plan will be finalized in May. And will we be able to receive a copy? Yes, of course. We'll send you a copy. Of course. as soon as it's been finalized and approved by the Executive Council. We had a PowerPoint presentation made by the Deputy Minister where they explained both official languages. Do you plan to use it? Well, we don't have that now, but what we're going to try to do in finalizing the plan is to be as clear as possible with respect to the objectives and the performance measures and the actual measurement of these achievements. And I hope to draw a link between the aspects of the plan that relate directly to the comments made by the Commissioner. D's, C's, and E's for the Department of Foreign Affairs are very hard for us to swallow. There are other departments that are making efforts, but at Foreign Affairs, a rating like that is unacceptable. I have visited several places abroad, and when I show up, they know clearly that I'm a member of the Bloc Québécois, that I'm a francophone and francophile. They send me their only francophone employee, oftentimes, to speak French to me, but oftentimes the rest of the staff isn't even bilingual necessarily, regardless of the country where we're being represented. And I think that this is of the utmost importance. There's a huge amount of work that needs to be done. Ms. Dubé, you've been in the department for a long time now. You're undoubtedly aware of that. I have been posted abroad myself. I've been in the department for many years now, having held best practices meetings with all levels of employees. And what I can tell you is that our missions and our heads of mission are very much aware of their responsibilities. Well, if that were the case, then you wouldn't have the rating that you received. Thank you, Ms. Gay. Thank you very much. Mr. Godin. I'd like to continue on that same question. How can they be aware of it and receive that rating? Our missions abroad are very much aware that it's their job to promote the interests of Canadians abroad and linguistic groups, the official language communities. So on a daily basis, in the delivery of services and in the performing of their duties, they're called upon to do all kinds of things in terms of outreach, whether it be celebrations for Canada Day, public speeches where they're called upon to speak both official languages, or where they speak to other governments and where the importance of Canada's position as a bilingual country can be felt. Now, our missions abroad have a great deal of work to do in this area. Does Passport Canada fall under your department? Yes. Well, how is it then that Passport Canada provides a service in both official languages throughout the country, whereas Canada Post provides services across the country and it's not bilingual in many cases? Perhaps I didn't put my question properly, but it's very well acknowledged that Passport Canada deals with the issues of where numbers warrant. What kind of mechanism have you put in place to ensure that people have access? Because in the past, Passport Canada didn't use Canada Post as an office to provide their information, but now they do. Do you have any data on that? I don't have that data with me here this morning, but we can commit to providing it to you. Well, I'd like to go back to the 36 and 24%. There's 52% that's missing. Once you've got 88%, no, 36% is a number. It's the entire Francophone population within the department. Their first language is French. Now, that doesn't mean that all of those people are in rotational positions where they travel abroad and work in our foreign missions. The figures are not measuring exactly the same things. Nonetheless, we do try to do our utmost to ensure that our heads of mission are bilingual, as is the staff abroad, Canadians in those bilingual positions.
There are some areas where you say that culture can be changed. What type of programs do you have to, say, go into an office where you know that there have been problems, that there have been complaints? What do you do about that?
Quelque chose. En premier lieu, comme on a dit, la première responsabilité.
As we said, really, the head of mission is the one that is primarily responsible for these issues. And we work hard on raising awareness among heads of mission about these responsibilities that they have. And for the most part, they're very well aware of them. There is a 2-week course for heads of mission that takes place in May and June. And I will be speaking to them this year. And one of the real focuses, one focus for this year will be ensuring this level of service in the language of choice of Canadians. So you have an action plan for the upcoming years? Yes? We will give you our action plan in May. May, okay? I'd like to get back to Passport Canada. Will you be able to tell us what was the outcome of reopening the offices, what effect that had on bilingual services? I mean, when I say opening offices, I mean transferring responsibilities to Canada Post. We'll try to find that information for you. I don't have that with me here today. Thank you very much, Mr. Gaudin. I made a mistake, in fact. I gave the floor to Mr. Gaudin before I gave our parliamentary secretary the opportunity to speak. So, Mr. Gould, you have the final word. Mr. Gould, thank you very much. I thank the witnesses for being here, and I'd like to also commend them on their work, because at this point, when it comes to foreign affairs, we know the department is on 24 hours a day, and I really thank you for your good work. In your presentation, Mr. Rosenberg, you referred to accountability to Parliament. You're aware of the fact that you've had a rather negative evaluation in terms of official languages by the Official Languages Commissioner. Do you feel an obligation? Do you feel responsible for your department's accountability to Parliament? Do you feel that there's some pressure that's going to lead you to create a strategic or an action plan, as policy planning? It's not simply about putting something on a shelf. It really has to work with it. We, as a department, want all departments to improve their grades. What are you going to do about this? I agree that it's not enough to say, well, we have an action plan and we can put it on the shelf. End of story. There are some issues that are important. First of all, you need a plan, because without a plan, you really don't know where you're headed. So that's important. There's also the issue of implementing a plan. And as I've already said, certain issues such as leadership at all levels that have to come to the fore. Also, quantifiable measures need to be in place, giving us the capacity to measure progress, to see where things stand, where we are at, to intervene if necessary in order to improve performance. And accountability also. We have to report from time to time to Parliament or to a parliamentary committee that is responsible for ensuring the accountability of government for its actions. Thank you for your answer. I think before our government took office, I think there was a moral obligation to do this work. But now, really, there is this additional obligation to ensure accountability. We'll be seeing you next year. We really want to see a big difference. We'll certainly be inviting you to appear. That's all I had to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gould. I think this is the end of for the first part of our meeting, and I'd like to thank Mr. Rosenberg and his team for appearing before our committee. We do know that you have very busy days ahead of you, and thank you very much. And look forward to seeing you again. We'll be suspending the meeting for a few moments so we can go in camera to work on future business. Mr. Bélanger, this is a notice of motion that I tabled, several days ago. Thank you to our witnesses.
OK. Monsieur Bélanger, il est où, M. Moril?
S'il a la parole, il faut... Je sais pas.
OK, ouais. Monsieur Bélanger, vous avez une motion.
Mr. Bélanger, you have a motion? Yes. This is a motion asking of the committee to re-invite Viviane Forad, Associate Deputy Minister of Human Resources and Skills Development, and working as a leader in Service Canada and champion for official languages, to follow up on the March 8th, 2011 meeting. You remember this meeting, of course. We want to make some things clear, and this is why I would propose that we invite them to reappear before the committee. Ms. Liséane Forand, Senior Associate Deputy Minister of the Department of Human Resources and Skills Development. Mr. Godin, I do have an amendment for this motion, to the motion. I would ask that they appear Thursday of this week. We already have a meeting planned with people from Industry Canada for 1 year, so there is a potential 1 hour availability window for this witness, if that is the will of the committee. So this will be this Thursday? Yes, and to address this very motion, I think it's important for these people to reappear. You really are not going to believe me when I say this, but it's really not to be mean with them that I'm raising this point, but there's a contradiction here. Ms. Fayon is telling us, and I'll just give you an example. In her testimony, it was abundantly clear in terms of the administrative structure of the Atlantic region, it's unilingual. I even asked the question, is it unilingual francophone? With a smile, she said unilingual anglophone. You remember this. I did ask the question, right? Now, one of the directors of Service Canada in the Atlantic region sent out a press release to say, no, there's been a mistake. It's bilingual, actually. Bilingual services are offered. So there's some kind of a disconnect between the actual service being provided and the administration. Michael Alexander said this and said that services, well, listen, we weren't talking about services. You remember, we were talking about the administration. There's the administration in New Brunswick. There's administration in Nova Scotia, one in Newfoundland, and one in PEI. These 4 administrations were merged or centralized, and things have changed. And we realized now, after speaking to the administration, that the administration was Anglophone. That's where they said, and in fact the director in Newfoundland who called me said, listen, I would appreciate it if you didn't call our offices, if you went to see the minister directly. The Anglophones can speak to the administration, but the Francophones have to speak to the minister. Well, that just makes no sense. And again, there are discussions underway. Apparently, Ms. Vaughan would be saying that she kind of made a mistake, that it is bilingual. Well, I'd like her to say that in public. Listen, she said it in public that it was an Anglophone, unilingual Anglophone administration. Well, if she made a mistake, let her tell us publicly that the administration in the Atlantic region is bilingual. We have 500,000 Francophones in that area. I think it's important to have her here before the committee as soon as possible to to clarify this issue. Otherwise, it will continue to snowball in the newspapers and in the media, and we're going to be talking about this disconnect. And people in the Atlantic region, Francophones in the Atlantic region, need to be reassured as to the services and administration in the Atlantic region. We need to know what's what. We need to know, people need to know. Otherwise, people are mobilizing on this point. Perhaps a decision's already been made. If they say, no, it is bilingual, well, then they just have to say it. That's it. Whenever they're talking about the issue, they talk about the service. They talk about the service, but not about the administrative structure. But my question was clear. The administrative structure, the directors, the directors in the area of employment insurance, directors of Service Canada, directors responsible for instance, student programs, student summer work programs, etc. All these people we were dealing with in the past, well, all of these people now are Anglophones. Well, she even said it takes 2 years to learn this new language for these people. These were new positions. Why did they put unilingual people into these positions? They should have made these positions bilingual. At least she should appear before us and explain the nuance here, that distinction to be drawn between the administration and the services. Thank you, Mr. Godin. So that would be this Thursday. Mr. Nadeau, you have the floor. If the mover of the motion is fine with Thursday, I have no problem with that. So a friendly amendment agreed to. Well, yes, Mr. Chairman, the Bloc Québécois will be supporting this motion. I discussed this issue with Mr. Bélanger at the Outaouais Film Festival when he made the suggestion to me. I do recall the presentation made by Ms. Ferrand, and I remember saying, the Maritimes are Anglophone only now, in English. I said this. Quite frankly, I was being a good boy, and I said, listen, there are some ways of doing things. You could have teleconferencing to make sure that these services can be offered in French. If no one is able to speak French in the office. Upon reflection, and I think I was talking to Elections Canada in the past, I'll tell you, frankly, today, if I end up in the Acadie region and I get someone tell me that they don't offer services in French from Ms. McMillan, I think really it would take, I'd have to be, brought out of that office forcibly by the RCMP, because I can assure you I would not be happy and I would want my services in French. Furthermore, it's a region, the Acadie region, where French is really the majority language or the main language. So in that spirit, if Ms. Ferrand did make a mistake in her interpretation, it would be good for us to know about it. Because as Mr. Godin was saying, in the media, we've seen in the days after her appearance that there was quite an outcry. That there are in fact two very different messages coming out of that department. So I would suggest that we really set the record straight, as Mr. Godin was saying, and the Acadians are just as entitled to services in their language as the Loyalist descendants in the Maritimes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Nadeau. Mr. Murphy, you wanted to make a comment?
I guess what the two previous speakers said, but it's a little more serious even than, I think Yvon said he didn't want to be mean or anything. I might want to be mean because I think the split message is deliberate. I'll go so far as to say that Service Canada, in their releases, have said, and is printed in Atlantic Canadian newspapers, remind Mr. Nadeau that it's not just the Maritimes, it's the region of the Atlantic provinces, which are four. I know that the Bloc would be sensitive to geography, as we are. But Service Canada has said nothing has changed. Yet they admit that there is a designation for administrative purposes in one region, which is a change. They also say that the place of work and the services offered are both unaffected. That is not what we heard from the witness. So either it's the right hand, left hand, either who we heard it hadn't relayed the message to the people in the press office, or there's some sort of deliberate confusion being attempted here between what we all understand as services delivered in both languages and what I call the back office sort of a place of work, part 4 and 5 of the Act, that have to be complied with. So I think the agency should be called here, but I also think it should be in the strongest words from you, Mr. Chair, or those inviting the witness, that they be prepared to answer what I would say is a deliberate contradiction in the public. If it's easily solved, great. Somebody, however, has to be rebuked because there's a deliberate, well, there is a contradiction now in the public, let alone what the evidence was. So support the motion fully, obviously.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We've taken note of your comments. We have gotten into the habit of telling our witnesses about the questions that might arise during their appearance before the committee. Mr. Gould. Yes, we also on this side support your motion, and even Mr. Godin or the NDP's amendment to the motion. We would like to hear from Service Canada this week. We just don't understand. Did Ms. Ferrand make a mistake? Just to assure you, we are really on your side on this point. We did hear what she said, and we were really surprised by her comments. And I think it would be worthwhile to hear from Ms. Ferrand again to rectify the situation. Thank you very much, Mr. Gould. I see. Are members ready to move to the vote? Mr. Godin, if you had I think you wanted to make the final comment. Mr. Bélanger usually would, says the chair. No, I don't want to get the final word, says Mr. Godin. I just have a point to make. Simply just in a few words. She should understand. Did they make a mistake? Did they not? Now they're stuck in this issue. There's a difference between Service Canada, providing services to the public, and in the administrative service. Mr. Jim Wood, who represented the administration in New Brunswick, Mr. Jim Wood, who was bilingual, when we would call him when we had problems. When I wanted to speak to Mr. Wood, she said, I was told he was replaced by Doug Johnson in Newfoundland, who doesn't speak French, and that's his new job. Anytime anyone wants to speak to the anytime anyone in Bathurst wants to speak to the administration, we have to deal with Doug, who doesn't speak any French. Mr. Bélanger. First of all, I thank my colleagues for their support. Second, in preparation for the meeting on Thursday, there were some issues as to the administrative structure. If there were some notes prepared by the analyst on this, it would be useful. Also, mea culpa, while I was chairing that meeting on that day, I was told, and rightly so, I had forgotten to point out that it was the International Day of Women's Day, and I apologize for that. I didn't mention it, and I'm doing it a little bit later after the fact. Mr. Godin, before we vote, I would not want to surprise Ms. Ferrand by telling her this when she appears before us, but I just wanted to say that there was apparently, she had said that there has been consultations in Chedicon as to when they had removed services or withdrawn services from certain groups, that there was going to be some mobile services provided. When that came out in the news, Francophone organizations were saying we were never consulted. We were just simply told there was an end to services, no more services. Thank you, Mr. Godin. I sense that there's unanimous consent from members. Can we move to the vote then? Who's in favor? All those in favor of Mr. Bélanger's motion and keeping that date this Thursday unanimously? Thank you very much. It is carried. We will now move in camera. Just before you move in camera, Mr. Godin, go ahead. The RCMP has not reported. In fact, we send letters to the RCMP and they're not responding. I'm suspending, and then we will get back to this issue.